Sun Belt apparently has another job opening. JMU's Bob Chesney heading west to UCLA. We talk about it next. Locked on Sun Belt.
You are Locked on Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked on Sun Belt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right. We'll get to Charles Huff, big on some potential lists for AAC squads, and the Sun Belt sending 9 teams to the postseason. We'll talk more about Saturday's action. I will also apologize. I'm stuffed up. I cannot hear in one ear. I came down with a cold over the last 48 hours. So please bear with me. All right. All right. So lunchtime again, same as 24 hours. When Coastal Carolinas, Tim Beck was let go, I was sitting at lunch and my nephew, Sam, affectionately known as the Samo, told me that UCLA was hiring Bob Chesney. Not a surprise. These reports have been out there for at least a week, if not longer, that they were interested in him. I think we talked about it in yesterday's episode. Like, it came out on Saturday that they were going to talk to him about interviewing for the job. Like, I don't know how far down the road they were, but not much of a surprise overall. All right. Oddly enough, he had just finished his Monday press conference, getting ready for this weekend's game, or Friday's game, anyways, in the Sun Belt Championship game. And they asked him about other job openings. And he goes, kind of, I don't want to say admitted to it, certainly didn't bring up UCLA, but also didn't ignore the fact that it's out there, trying to tell the team, look, there's going to be outside noise. We can't do anything about it. I've got agents. They're dealing with it. Okay. Shortly thereafter, the press conference, the reports, I believe Odd3 was the one who reported it first. So it was going out to UCLA. Couple things about that. Obviously, it's a little fish out of water. It's a Pennsylvania guy, has only coached in the Northeast, and then, picked up where Kurt Signetti left off at JMU. Okay. I'm a big believer, and I could be naive when it comes to this. You can either recruit or you can't recruit. Okay. You can either sell or you can't sell. Doesn't matter what you're trying to sell. You can either sell or you can't. And I'll give you an example of this. If you want to recruit, you can. If you don't want to recruit, you're not going to. All right. So Brian Harsin was not a very good fit at Auburn because he didn't want to recruit. And the side note on this was he was coming in at the end of 20, right? So we're not even a year into COVID yet, right? So there's still no on-campus visits, anything like that, which should have made it easier, right? I can do Zoom calls. I could just be on my phone and computer all day long. I don't even need to go meet you, right? I don't have to take the time to travel. I can talk to you for half an hour, 15 minutes, whatever it is. So it came out when all of the bad stuff came out for Brian Harsin. He got past that, which was not true. But he admitted he didn't recruit Thompson High. Well, I'd spent a couple of years in Alabama, and I'm some Northeastern Yankee. And I know after you talk to the AD and maybe a real estate agent, and you're going to coach at Auburn, like Hoover may be your first call, and then Thompson High is your second call. What are we doing here? And so I think Bob will be successful. First of all, he's going to the Big Ten. So we need UCLA and Indiana matched up. All right. So he can play against Kurt Signetti. So that'll be good. And he does not lack talent in Southern California. Where do you think all these quarterbacks come from? There's not a lack of talent in California. And now, are they going to USC? Is Lincoln Riley still getting them? Right? Does Oregon come down and get it? Do some guys go up to Boise? What about Arizona State? So there is a ton of talent in the state of California. You can just do the hop, skips, and a jump in your commuter plane and go see all the talent that you want. All right? He does not lack talent in the state of California. And then you can pick and choose. It's even more so, right? Like the big reason, for those who don't know, and I'm sure the people who watch this show do know, all right, the difference between LSU and Ole Miss, not so much the history, but the ease of recruiting. LSU does not have to split their prospects, in-state prospects, with another Power 5 school, Power 4 school, right? They're it. There's plenty of other schools, Tulane, the Cajuns, ULM, McNeese, Southeastern, Grambling, Southern. There are plenty of schools, but LSU is the only Power 4 one, right? All those other schools in the SEC, outside of maybe Missouri, and Arkansas, but Arkansas, there's not a whole lot of talent in that state of Arkansas. Texas, A&M, Houston's now Power 4, right? Auburn and Alabama have to share. Ole Miss and Mississippi State have to share. LSU gets the pick of the litter. Now, in California, there's plenty of Power 4 schools, right? Cal and Stanford. Cal just knocking off SMU. How about that? So you got Cal, Stanford, USC, and UCLA. All right. So there's more than almost a handful. But there's also plenty to go around, right? I mean, it's basically, from Georgia or the tip of California, the tip of Florida on the East Coast, all the way up to, I don't know what the tip of California is. Is that Pennsylvania, right? So it has a lot of areas. So I think Bob Chesney, because if you can recruit, you can recruit. He may need to introduce himself and go in person to a bunch of these guys, work around traffic somehow. But I think he's going to do a great job at UCLA. Now, how many guys is he going to get to go with him? Has Curt Cignetti got to go to JMU or to go to Indiana from JMU? We'll see. But I think he's going to do a great job. And again, we've talked about this for the better part of a week already. Nobody has moved faster than Bob Chesney. Like, Cignetti had been at JMU for a little bit before they went to the Sun Belt, before he went to Indiana. This guy, Chesney, has gone from, he was the coach at Holy Cross in 2023. He's now the coach of UCLA in 2026. That's fast. All right. He probably went from a couple 100,000, if he's lucky, at Holy Cross. Is either somewhere between 800 and $1 million at JMU. Now he's going to get 4 times that. Now, difference is, cost a lot to live out in LA compared to Harrisonburg or any of these college towns, right? It doesn't cost a fortune to live in Baton Rouge, but Lane's getting $12 or $13 million, whatever it is. So he'll be fine out there. I think he's going to do a good job. I'm certainly not the first one to say this, but there was and we'll get into this with Charles Huff, a run on AAC coaches. And now Bob Chesney has been plucked, so the Power 5, the Power 4 doesn't want to play ball in terms of getting, any G5 teams in, but they want all their coaches. That's for sure. Interestingly, how that works out. So I can't take credit for that line. That's other people's lines. It was all over the internet the last couple of days. All right. Now, what happens if, well, not what happens if. Charles Huff has been mentioned on coaching vacancies for Memphis and now Tulane. All right. We'll talk about that next, right after I tell you about Omaha Steaks. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to a family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. I've given Omaha Steaks as a gift before and received, and the reaction is always the same. Excitement when the box arrives and even bigger smiles when everything hits the grill. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Save on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off statewide, site-wide, and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code college at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code college. Terms apply. See site for details. I didn't think a cold would stop me from being able to read. I apologize. Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. All right, so Charles Huff had a relatively successful season at Southern Miss in year one. Okay. If they weren't as streaky and finished 7-5 with a loss to Troy, it'd be thought upon much differently. But unfortunately, they were 7-2 and did not play well down the stretch to go to 7-5. All right. But if you take a one-win team and win 7 games and go bowling, where you're looking at maybe 8 wins, you're going to be considered for other jobs. Now, all of a sudden, there are 3 AAC team openings, right? We got USF, I think. We got Memphis and Tulane. Okay. Those are opening. Also, JMU, as it turns out, in the Sun Belt. Boy, it would be crazy. Can you imagine this podcast if he took the JMU job? Oh, man. Please? No, I'm kidding. 3 different jobs in the same conference in 3 years. That'd be fascinating. All right. So he's going to be mentioned in those job openings because if you don't know, forget the Marshall stuff. He's an Alabama running backs coach. So he's got ties to save it. All right. And Penn State, for that fact of the matter. It's fascinating. Ask him who's the best running back that you coached, and he's got a long list of outstanding running backs. All right. But he deserves to get these opportunities. All right. But what I brought up with Scott Watkins was, and maybe specifically to Kane Womack and others, is taking a G5 head coaching job the path? Well, this round, it seems that way, right? Alex Golesh just got a job. Ryan Sealfield just got a job. And John Summerall had his pick of the litter. And if he waited a day, he could have been at Kentucky. All right. So all those guys got a job. Kane Womack didn't. Kane Womack turned the South Alabama team into a perennial bowl team, except this year, right? They had gone to 1, 2, 3 straight bowl games, and they won 10 ball games. And he didn't get that job that he was hoping for and not even considered for it at Mississippi State. We'll see if Kane gets the Ole Miss. Well, Pete Colton got the Ole Miss job. So I wondered, he felt like, and maybe it's a special circumstance because he's friends with Kalen DeBoer. Kalen was, I believe, the offensive coordinator at Indiana when Kane was the defensive coordinator at Indiana. So they've known each other for a while. So maybe it's special circumstances. It did double his salary. I thought it was going to be more than that, but it did double his salary. But I also think, and I haven't really spoken to Kane about this, but I also think he didn't think he could get a Power 4 job through a G5 head coaching job anymore. All right. And so that was an issue. But now all these G5 guys are being scooped up. All right. Alex Golesh did a good job at USF, maybe a little bit overrated this year because, like Charles Huff, he fell flat. All right. They didn't quite finish it off. They got off to a good start, blowing out Boise State and beating Florida, but then kind of falling by the wayside after that, getting hammered by Miami. And ended up with 3 losses? Ryan Silverfield, the same thing, right? Memphis tanked. People are telling me, well, Charles Huff is going nowhere because they just lost 3 in a row. Didn't Ryan Silverfield do the same thing? He just lost 3 in a row. So, or Memphis did at least 3 in a row. And so it'll be interesting to see how this all works out. Also, the Southern Miss react or overreact. He did a really good job. Is there somebody on his staff that wants to stay? Or do we have to overpay to keep Charles Huff? Because that's my thing is, that's why these salaries keep on going up and up and up and up and up. Okay. Ole Miss was going to match Lane Kiffin. Well, he didn't go because of the money. He claims he went because of the potential to win championships. Now, I would tell you, and it could be case specific, right? LSU hasn't done anything in the portal or NIL era, maybe more NIL era. Obviously, Joe Burrow transferred. That may be right before it came into full swing. And whereas Ole Miss hasn't either yet, but they appear to be playing in their first playoff, with or without Lane Kiffin. All right. And so we'll see. Again, the pressure on Lane Kiffin got to get to playoff game next year. I mean, there is no ifs, ands, buts about it. You cannot fall short. All right. You got to win a national championship within 2 or 3 years. No one wants to hear why you didn't. Injuries will be an issue. If you get injured, it is what it is. They may not care down in LSU. I would care. We've been over that, injuries are a reason, not an excuse. All right. And so we'll see what happens with Charles Huff. I guess Blake Baker, who we don't know if he's coming or going on the LSU defensive staff. Most think he's going to stay. But apparently, according to reports from New Orleans, Garland Gillen, he reported that Blake Baker interviewed for the Tulane job. So we'll see what happens there. Does he stay at LSU or does he take the Tulane job and continue what John Summerall did, which continued what Willie Fritz did? So I will also say that for a fan base that is not the most level-headedness, right? They are very emotional. If you've been following Southern Miss fans this year and been in my mentions throughout, they're very level-headed when it comes to the stories that Charles Huff may be going out. There's like, we weren't expecting him to stay. Almost like he's a mercenary. He'll be here a year or two, coach well, and take off, which that's fine. That's kind of what you want. As long as, does he leave somebody behind to keep on doing the culture that he was building, or do we find a whole new culture once again? That's a little tougher to do if you're bringing in a whole new coach. So we'll see what happens there. But right now we have 2 coaching searches, Coastal Carolina and JMU, and we'll see where that will lead us. All right, Sun Belt sending 9 teams to the postseason. That's impressive. Most of any G5 conference. We talk about that next and some more of Saturday's results right after I tell you about Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time app is clutch. Finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track prices, price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for the fine print. If you want JMU Troy tickets, you better hustle up because they're going to be in the triple-digit costs here shortly, all right? And JMU has that reputation for selling out. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. As I mentioned, the Sun Belt going to 9 bowl games. That's awesome. All right. We've already done the Cajuns game, crazy as it was. So let's talk about some other ball games from the weekend. And there were some good ball games. One of them was not a good ball game, Texas State. 49-26. Texas State does blow out South Alabama. It was 10-7 at the end of the first quarter, 21-7 at half. and 35-7 going into the fourth quarter. All right. South Alabama finished rather, they won a couple ball games at the end, but Texas State, and again, something you don't see every day, losers of 5 straight, won 3 straight to get to that bowl game. All right. And they do win their final regular season Sun Belt game as they go to Pac-12 2.0. All right. And this game, just some of these statistics are crazy. Texas State outgained South Alabama 554 to 364. But oddly enough, Texas State had 26 first downs to South Alabama's 22. So that's odd when it's 180 yards difference. Passing wise, listen to this. They both completed 20 passes. South Alabama was 20 of 32. Texas State, Brad Jackson, 20 of 26. But Jackson had almost an 11-yard average per pass, whereas South Alabama was less than 5. And I will say Bishop Davenport did get replaced a little bit. Jared Hollis played for South Alabama for a little bit. And we'll see. He's supposed to be a big-time recruit. He's there from locally. I think it is MGM High School. And so this is going to be his 3rd year coming up. So we'll see if he's the quarterback next season. But Texas State is going bowling out of the Sun Belt. Arkansas State also going bowling. Long field goal at the end of the game. I want to make sure I get this right. Ended up being no good. And it was a 45-yard field goal. So long, but not impossible. All right. And I kind of feel like we've been through this before with App State. All right. Kind of like the Coastal Carolina ball game, where they kept on tacking on field goals, which I don't have a problem with, but they couldn't finish off long drives with touchdowns. That allowed Coastal Carolina to get back into the game. And that loss is kind of what turned App State's season in the wrong direction. And this was, they missed a couple of field goals, I guess, in this ball game. But this game was pretty much back and forth. Arkansas State, or I should say App State, had a 13-3 lead. But then Arkansas State took a 16-13 lead. It was tied at 16, tied at 23. And then App State kicked a couple of field goals. Made it 26-23 and made it 29-23. And then, like as we've seen before, Jalen Rayner, 7 plays in 75 yards in 52 seconds. Set up by a 34-yard pass. Rayner to Corey Rucker. That set up Clay's 1-yard touchdown run and the extra point, which was big, as that was the difference in the ballgame. So Arkansas State, not as good as I thought they were going to be this year, but they're going bowling. 3rd straight year that Butch Jones has taken his club bowling. Also going bowling, Georgia Southern. They go into Marshall, they go into Huntington, and take down the Marshall Thundering Herd 24-19. And you sort of look at this game and kind of like, was Marshall not ready to play it? They fell down 14-3. In fact, it was. They got actually up 3-0, but Georgia Southern scored a touchdown on their first drive. Marshall went 3 and out. Georgia Southern scored a touchdown on their second drive. It was 14-3, became 14-6, more field goals, and then got all the way up to 24-6 before Marshall put a touchdown on at the end of the 3rd quarter. Still possibly a ball game, but Marshall had 10 plays, 73-yard drive, and on 4th and 10, they got shut down, as you would expect. They still made it 24-19, but Georgia Southern was able to run out the last 2:25, all right, in this ballgame. So Georgia Southern is going bowling. As we mentioned, they fired their defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. We'll see who they bring in moving forward. But when Clay Helton is making those moves, you figure Clay Helton is coming back. All right. So I think we did all of them. We didn't talk much about ODU. ODU with kind of a nondescript 27-10 victory. I guess they were down 10-0, but it didn't last all that long because it was a 10-0 lead in the second quarter, and it was 10-10 at half. So not that big of a difference, all right? ODU scored a field goal, made it 10-3. Georgia State threw an interception. ODU scored a touchdown in 2 plays. That's how you go from 10-0 to 10-10 all in the second quarter. And then they won 27-10. Stats-wise, kind of the way a 27-10 game looks like. 409 yards to 283. Colton Joseph did not have one of his better ball games. 9 out of 22 with an interception. Let's see here. Devin Roche ran for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. Colton Joseph did run for 108 yards. He actually ran for 108 yards, passed for 106, and did score 1 touchdown. Nonetheless, ODU is looking possibly at a 10-win season. And again, we haven't heard anything about Ricky Ronnie moving on. We'll see if that comes to pass. And I think we've done all the other ball games. We certainly went in depth about the Cajuns ball game, Troy and Southern Miss. And that's about it. We didn't really go into detail with JMU and Coastal Carolina, I don't think. Maybe we did. But that game was never close, and probably a good reason why Tim Beck got let go. All right. Not only was he not up to those standards that Jamie Chadwell said, he got blown out. He wasn't the only one, as JMU has done a number on Coastal Carolina like 4 straight years. But they're getting blown out by JMU. If JMU is the standard, and you're finding out where you are, if you are Coastal Carolina, you can't be liking that too much. All right, so we'll see where these 2 coaching openings put us. We can start talking a little college basketball again. It has, again, not been a great start for the Sun Belt. The CNET ratings came out, or the net ratings came out. CNET is something different, obviously. But the net ratings came out, and South Alabama had the best net ratings around. They just come off a big win over UTSA, 82-58. They are 7-1. UNC Asheville beat App State on Sunday. Old Dominion fell to William and Mary. Old Dominion falls to 3-6. And Coastal Carolina with a win over Alabama A&M. On Monday, you do have Troy taking on West Georgia. I was kind of surprised to see Troy has fallen behind South Alabama, having beaten San Diego State, lost close to USC, but they have lost a couple in a row. Oh, they did lose to Toledo, but they did beat St. Francis. So I'm not sure if guys are banged up or not. So we'll start doing that. I mean, quickly, South Alabama, this is in order, no divisions. South Alabama 7-1, Marshall 5-2, Arkansas State 5-3, Coastal Carolina 5-3, Texas State 6-4, Southern Miss 4-3, James Madison 5-4, Troy is 5-4, App State and Georgia Southern 4-5, Old Dominion 3-6, Monroe 1-6, Georgia State and the Cajuns 1-7. Ouch, if you're the Cajuns. Yeesh. Should mention, actually, Southern Miss, I think, had the second net rating behind South Alabama. I think Troy may have been 4th in the Sun Belt from what I saw. All right, so we'll start looking at that as well, as we only got 1 football game to talk about and 2 coaches searches to talk about. So we'll dive into those deeper and look at the basketball as well. Did reach out for 1 guest this week. We'll see if that happens. And the plan is still to go to Harrisonburg for Friday's ball game. All right, so that is the plan. We'll see if it all works out. I'm going to go to bed. All right, you can hear I'm not feeling well. We're going to call it a quick night and hopefully be in better shape for tomorrow's episode. All right, so thank you so much. Again, we continue to grow. We had a great November and off to a great start here in December. And most likely 2 coaches searches are going to help out with that. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep those comments coming. I'm the one replying, so I appreciate that as well. You've been watching and listening to Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. part of the Locked On podcast, the #1 sports podcast network around. Thank you so much. Have a great Tuesday, everybody, and we will talk to you again on Wednesday.